Well, investigators in France have identified the second terrorist in the murder of a priest inside a church. Like his accomplice, the teenage attacker was on a list of radicalised individuals and was considered a terror threat. We're also learning today the other attacker was deported by Turkey last year after an examination by terror profilers as he tried to enter Istanbul. At the time of the church slaying, he was under house arrest and wearing an electronic monitoring device. Well, in Europe, this seems like the summer of blood. A string of attacks in Belgium, France and Germany have sparked fear right across the continent. Our international diplomatic editor, Nick Robertson, wrote a story on our website called Europe on Edge, the New Normal. He joins us now from our London bureau. Nick, firstly, as we've seen in France, the church attack, and in so many cases before it, the assailants are often known to police. Clearly, authorities are stretched. How do they get around that?
Well, in France, one of the ways they're trying to tackle it is by having these emergency powers, which give the police greater speed to go into people's properties, investigate them very, very quickly if they get a fast tip-off. But the reality is that so many from Northern Europe, so many hundreds, tens of hundreds of young men, some women as well, have gone off to Iraq and Syria, and they're coming back now in numbers that haven't been seen before as well. So they're presenting counterterrorism officials, intelligence agencies, a huge challenge that they might register people coming back and know that this person has been to Syria or there's a question mark about them. But the resources to actually be able to monitor all these people in real time and assess whether or not they pose a current threat, a threat in a few months, a threat next year, or if they're communicating with others outside the country who might be directing them to attack, all these sorts of things. The resources, the magnitude, it's stretching all Europe's counterterrorism officials. And this is part of why we see such a spate of incidents that we're witnessing. They're all different. The people involved in them, they don't fit into the same pattern, if you will. But and again, this amplifies the problems for intelligence agencies. But it's a sheer numbers game. There are a lot of them, and not enough of the people trying to keep a handle on what they're planning and what they're about to do.
Absolutely. I just want to reference your article. It's a very good article, Europe on the Edge, the New Normal. You wrote, and I quote, "The fabric of cohesion offering peace, prosperity and security, patiently woven over decades, suddenly feels like a paper bag in a summer storm, ready to rip." Are you finding that that is the prevalent feeling right across Europe, that people are losing hope that we will once again see a peaceful, stable, safe Europe?
There are so many issues at play here. Number one, you have Britain, for example, pulling out of the European Union, voting for the Brexit. There's a potential for a similar thing in France. A lot of that has come down to concerns about the numbers of migrants, but then the concerns about who these migrants are and what they might be doing. So you find people, now I find people talking to me about Muslims, about the threat that they perceive, about where they might go on vacation or not go on vacation now. Turkey, for a lot of people, is sort of off the cards. Egypt is off the cards. They find the places like in Spain that they would go to more crowded. You talk to people who just are more aware of people around them and their backgrounds, and therefore, should they be worried about this person? People didn't have those fears to this same level last summer. And this is something that nationalist and right-wing organizations feed off, fuel off of, and it's a growing trend inside Europe. So when you have a spate of incidents as we've had here, this is fuel and fodder for the nationalists. It's propaganda for ISIS. These two things collide, feed off of each other. But for Europe, at a time when Europe itself is losing the bonds that kept it peaceful since World War II, going back to, as we saw, nationalism that existed before World War II inside Europe. These are all worrying trends, that sense of peace and stability that we had for decades, which led to prosperity. That people are not as calm as they were. Maybe in another few months, if there's no more attacks, they will go back to feeling a little more steady about the situation. But this is what worries people who wouldn't have worried about it in the past. Linda?
OK, Nick Robertson, we'll have to leave it there. But for all our viewers, Europe on Edge, the New Normal, is on our website, cnn.com. Thanks, Nick.